definitely a potential market. I just turned it on. Dr. Stuart Nakamoto is CTAR extension guru, marketing guy, who's also one of the leading researchers for tea in Hawaii, is going to do a module class for you guys after the business class. So when he comes in and does his presentation, I think he's probably going to hook up with Lester and do a risk management as well, talk about crop insurance. But when he comes and you're into tea,
what's his name again?
Stuart Nakamoto. So he's going to come in. So just if you're interested in tea, he's definitely a guy to talk to. He could also get you numbers. So if you're talking about putting tea as your business plan for the next round of class, and you're like, hey, I need some market analysis numbers, Stuart would certainly be the person to talk to. He could do all the work for you. Okay? All right. What are we talking about now? Hydroponics. I'm going to go through these next parts pretty quickly. A lot of folks know a lot of things about these next subjects, so I don't want to hit on anything that everybody already knows. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm just going to rattle through it real quickly, and we'll go see some pigs. What is hydroponics? Anybody know? We talked about that the first day. Yes, soilless and using a nutrient solution. So 2 factors as far as hydroponics go. Soilless media, and you're using a nutrient solution. So you're adding nutrients to water. What are some of the pros and cons? We went through this last time. Let me have them. Pros. That's a con. Yeah, but okay, so it's a bad thing. Sometimes the effluent water can be toxic. It grows fast, right?
It grows in conditions where, like we have here.
Mm-hmm. Lack of disease, which could be a pro or a con, right? Because disease can be a problem. You have a raft system, you have some kind of ebb and flow system, and then the disease can actually spread throughout your entire system. Materials cost is definitely a con, right? Energy cost, pumps, all that stuff. You really, if you think that this is a business idea for you, you really have to do your financials first and really figure out your cost and how much your profit is going to be. So strongly recommended when you do your business plan for doing this hydroponics is to get on that financials plan first and then see if it's a viable thing for you to do, especially if you need to go get lending. Most people can't do a hydroponics project without $10,000 in the bank. And I would recommend another $10,000 for emergencies. I love hydroponics, but to me it's an issue because, like I said, lots of plastics involved, a lot of energy involved. None of the materials are made in Hawaii. It's really just, it's not sustainable enough for me. But I'm a freak like that as far as sustainability. It's inexpensive, clean. Oh, necessary materials. You're going to need inexpensive, clean, and disease-free water. You guys are on county, right? No? Some of you on rain catchment? You can use county water for hydroponics without treating it at all. You're fine. If you're using rainwater or ditch water, you definitely want to treat it. Okay? If it's good enough to drink, it's good enough to use for your plants, for sure. You're going to need a lot of initial capital and borrowing power. Or have a really big bank account already. So, I'm talking on a commercial scale, guys. This isn't just some backyard thing. We're talking about a farm here. We're talking about a working business. We're talking about minimum making $100,000 a year in profit. Minimum. You're going to need a lot of capital to do that, borrowing power. You're going to need a method of disposing of the waste. There's a lot of biological methods out there that I recommend. If you have a holding tank for your effluent water, you can actually use microorganisms to break down that material into the point where it becomes You can then run it through a filter, and then the water becomes usable again. You can put it back into your system. But you need to have these holding systems and these holding tanks, which going back up here. Okay? An effluent hydroponic holding system for microorganisms is going to cost you alone about $65,000 to $100,000. That's just to keep your water clean. So it is an option, but you got to have some way to do it. You have to have a very good understanding of plant physiology and morphology. What's physiology? Specifically, how the parts of something functions. So how does the flower function? How do the roots function? How does the apical stem function? The area of the stem where you have growth. How does it function? Well, you're going to have to understand that in order to physically be able to take your plants in an environment which it normally wouldn't naturally grow, soilless environment, and bring it through all of its different stages of life. We talked about this last time about hormones and stuff, right? Plants have different phases, different balances of hormones, different nutrient requirements throughout its life. So you have to have an understanding of that. Also, morphology. What's morphology? It's the actual structures themselves. So the structures and how they function. Okay? An excellent understanding of dihydrogen monoxide. If you don't have that, you won't do well. If you don't know what that is, get a chemistry book or actually break it down. Di meaning what? Hydrogen? H, right? Monoxide, 1, oxygen. H2O, just water. You have to have understanding of water. But you need to understand that water is a chemical compound. And it behaves strangely or differently than most people are used to when you start adding things to it, like nutrient solutions and everything. So I state it this way because I need you to understand there's chemistry involved. Okay? It's not just water. There's literally atoms bunched together. And when water is together, it can't stay by itself. It needs to be bonded with another water. You need to know these things to know how water behaves when it comes in, when it's the nutrient source for your plants. You need to have an IPM plan. What's IPM again? It's the last class. Integrated Pest Management Plan. Whitefly comes in to your hydroponic system. You better have a plan for that because by the time you act on it, your crop is half dead. Okay? You better have it in the plan already. When you find that your nutrient solution has a weird sulfuric odor to it. Every time I change the solution, it smells a certain way. Today I opened it up and it smells sulfury. What does that mean? What do I got to do? You go right to that plan. You turn to the page on your hydroponic solution section. It smells like sulfur. What do? You have all of this in your plan. We will talk about that on the last day. Okay? It's contingencies is basically what it is. You write down everything that can go wrong before it happens. You write down what you would do if something happened. And then you stick to that plan. You need to have great organization, planning, and scheduling skills. Anybody who's ever done large-scale hydroponics knows this, okay? You put a plant in, and you put it on a table, and it starts growing through its different phases, and then you start another project, and then you start some anthuriums, and you start this, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, when did I plant those tomatoes? And should I be starting to fertilize for the flower cycle now that it's 4 weeks in? Or how many weeks in did I put that out there? So you need to have organization skills, planning. You make maps. The best way to do that is to get a dry erase board, and you make a map of your tables that you have for your hydroponic system, and you literally write in what is in each spot. When did you put it there? What kind of nutrient solution is on that bench? And just stay organized, okay? Don't try to guesswork it. Don't try to put it out on a table. You will forget what is in there and when did you put it in. And then eventually, one of those plants can get root rot because it's been sitting there too long. What happens to that root rot? It's a fungus. Gets into the nutrient solution, and then your whole bench is done because you forgot that that one plant on the end has actually been there 4 weeks longer than the rest of them. Okay? Hey, I want to do hydroponics. Who do I talk to? Well, you're going to talk to Russell, not necessarily Russell Nagata. And Russell's going to be the, I guess he's the director of the Komohana Extension Center. Certainly one of the most knowledgeable people about hydroponics, but to hopefully get the director out to your house or to make an appointment probably won't happen. But if you call the Komohana Extension Center, they will be able to hook you up with somebody to come on out and do a pre-evaluation as you start setting up your greenhouse. You've already set up your crop selection, everything, nutrient solutions, where to acquire these materials. They can help you out with this, okay? I guess my next statement would be, does everybody know what an extension agent is? Okay, extension agent is a person who is paid by the state of Hawaii to sit in an office and wait for you to ask them questions about agriculture. They don't usually out in the office, they're usually out in the field. But these folks are paid by you, out of your wages, to answer your questions. They all have a specialty or an expertise. We're going to go meet with Michael DuPont. He's the livestock extension agent for CTAR, and he also does the natural farming side as well. And it basically comes down to, are you willing to reach out for free help? Okay. People always ask, James, can you come by my house? I need you to look at this plant. I need you to look at that tree. I need you to help me look at this. And I say, I call Komohana. I can't help you because I'm too busy. This is their job. They will come out. And they're very, very nice people. You're also going to want to get in contact or have a nice relationship with the Agriculture Diagnostic Service Center, which is on Oahu, CTAR. What is this place, you ask? This is where you send soil samples, solution samples, plant tissue samples to be analyzed, and you can get data back and let you know if you're doing things correctly, essentially. They'll give you fertilizer recommendations. They'll tell you what kind of diseases you might have. You can actually, you find an insect on your plant, you can put it in a little jar, put it in an envelope, ship it off to them, and they'll tell you what it is, how to get rid of it, if it's a problem, blah, blah, blah. Okay. We'll talk about, when we do soil survey, we'll talk about them a little bit more in depth. Where do you get your nutrient solutions from for hydroponics? There's the retail ones. Don't get those. Those are going to be the liquid jugs that you find at the hydroponic stores that all the Pakalolo farmers use. So this is like $50 for a liquid. It's just like, it's like kelp meal and some bat guano put into a liquid and then shipped here. And okay, it's insane how much money they charge for that. Okay, just remember that plants don't know the difference between an ammonia or nitrate molecule coming from one place for bat guano, if it comes from a factory, if it comes from this place or that place. The plant doesn't know the difference. It can only absorb a certain specific molecule. And it just sits there and goes, I need some, I need some. And if it comes along, no matter where it came from, it just gobbles it up and uses it. So know that your plants only desire molecules. They don't desire kelp meal and bat guano. They desire nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So be real picky and choosy about where you're getting your stuff from on the retail side. Now, there are some solutions that are magical. I'm telling you, they are amazing. When you're talking about hydroponics, you just want to weigh this on your financial sheet. Is it worth the return to put some of those solutions in to your, or some of those fertilizers into your solution? Okay. There's some I've seen that have doubled the yield on plants. Yes, go buy that one. But find it on a wholesale level. That'd probably be the best way to do it. Okay, wholesale. So you got BEI sells solutions. That's going to be the fertilizer distributor in Hilo. You can order them online. You can order them from Oahu. Lots of places will ship them in. It's what most people will do. Wholesale hydroponic solutions usually comes in a granular, and then you can put it, it's water soluble, and you put it right into your solution. Usually these are not going to be organic. You can do homemade. whether this be, it depends on where you source your materials from. Chicken manures, get manures from your home, compost them correctly, put them into a hydroponic system with a biofilter, and you can actually use that type material. There's natural farming materials. These are the ones that I use because I'm just that way. And these are things like fermented plant juice, fermented blood. I do a lot of that. Fermented feathers, fermented feather meal, put into a solution. So basically you just want to make sure you have a biofilter, something that's going to filter out the particulate, because when you talk about hydroponics, usually spaghetti tubes or something with very, very small holes that those things get dripped out of. So you just got to watch your amount of organic material in your solution. Okay? Moving right along, aquaponics and aquaculture. What is it? Aquaponics is the growth of plants in a soilless media. And the use, I guess it's, and utilizing biological effluents. So it could be fish or shrimp or whatever you got. Inside the water, you're going to have a aquatic creature on which poops into the system, and then that poop is used to fertilize the plants. That water is then filtered and cleaned and then put back into the system. So it is a closed system. Aquaculture is just the growth and cultivation of fish. Some people will grow fish exclusively and not use the effluents for crops. And they do that in tanks, and they grow lots of tilapia, and they sell it to the aquaponic farmers. So, if you were thinking of a business idea for your region that has no soil, but you have the wherewithal and the knowledge to say, make a lot of tilapia in a bunch of tanks, that might be a business idea for you to sell that tilapia and just do the aquaculture itself. Pros and cons, same as hydroponics. Materials cost super high. We went through this on the last class. What were some of the other ones I said? What was one of the unique ones that I said it was is a pro? Two crops, two items. So you got fish and your crop. That's why aquaponics is very, very popular, because you can make money off your fish, you can make money off of your crop, and some people are actually selling the effluent water so that people can put it into their hydroponic systems. Okay. Necessary materials. Once again, you need that great clean water. You're going to need a lot of capital. You need a way of getting rid of it. You need to have that wonderful understanding of plant physiology and morphology. You need to also have a great understanding of water. In addition to the things in hydroponics, you really need to understand organic acids, organic sulfur compounds, manganese and sulfides. Why? These are waste materials that come out of fish effluents that actually build up, because plants don't absorb these things. Once the fish poops, goes in the water, it tickles the roots of the plant goes, yeah, I don't want that. And then it just goes back into the system. It keeps cycling through, and then eventually you have a buildup of organic acids, sulfur compounds. Manganese is toxic to fish and plants at high levels. You got to watch that. Sulfides, toxic, very, very toxic stuff. Okay? So you need to have an understanding that you're not only growing plants, you're growing creatures in a closed environment. What happens if you put a cat in a cage for a week and just leave it there? You got a mess, right? Same thing happens in your fish effluent tank. You need to know how to address those issues. You need to have an understanding of fish biology and physiology. Know how they reproduce. Know what happens when they die. Do they have... is there certain fish, like Chinese catfish actually, if they die, can create a toxin in their system, and what that does is it prevents other catfish from eating the carcass, because in an evolutionary sense, biologists would say that those catfish in nature would usually have worms in them, so that the other catfish don't get the worms. It's a natural reaction for the catfish to become toxic. And so eventually you got to get all of your Chinese catfish out of the water immediately as soon as they die. Otherwise, you can poison your other fish and it becomes a problem. So understanding that, IPM plan, organization planning, and scheduling skills. Same as before. Okay? Doing okay up there? I didn't put a new timer on, by the way. Who is your contact? Get a hold of the CTARC Omaha Extension Center. Also, your extension specialist from UH Manoa, Clyde, very, very cool guy. He's in the Department of Molecular Biosciences and Bioengineering, and he actually focuses on designing aquaponic systems. So if you're talking about building your system, this is certainly somebody you're going to want to talk to. Maybe not so much on the, well, he is a microbiologist, but, or molecular biologist, but he's more on the engineering side. You might want to talk to Kevin from the Pacific Aquaculture and Cultural Resources Center, which is actually right in Pontieva. He's the director, and he meets with farmers and goes over systems and helps you out with designing systems, in addition to all the other work that he does for coastal areas and all that good stuff. There's also the UHC grant college program. These folks mostly focus on aquaculture and growing fish ponds and that kind of thing. But what they also focus on is how does aquaculture affect the environment? So if you're talking about tanks and all that stuff, this might be somebody you want to talk to, seeing if your system is going to be detrimental to the environment. Orchard cropping. What is it? It's easy. You're growing perennials. That's all it is. You got annuals and you got perennials. Two different kinds of plants. Ones that go for one life cycle, I guess reproductive cycle, and then ones that go for multiple reproductive cycles. Okay? Orchard cropping would be on the multiple side. So you can have like poha berry, right? Keeps going, doesn't really die off. It's a perennial. That would be considered orchard cropping because you're actually dealing with a plant that is sustained in there for a while. Pros and cons of orchard cropping. Pros: low overhead, low labor needed, not a lot of equipment needed. Overall, it's great for farmers with lower incomes or who use farms as a form of second income. Another pro: usually disease is not an issue if you know your crop well and you've been growing it a while and you have an understanding of your environment. Some cons: it takes a long time sometimes to get a crop. So if you're talking cacao or something, 5-6 years. Was it coffee's 4 or 5 years? You talk about mangosteen, you're talking 16, 17 years. Mango itself, probably what, 6, 7, 8, 9 years before you get a decent fruit off of it. Avocado, probably right up in that range where you're getting marketable avocado. So it takes a long time. Ooh, another pro: low fertilizer costs and low fertilizer needs. One of the cons is harvesting. Harvesting is usually a problem, mainly because you don't deal with the other con, which is pruning correctly. If you prune correctly, you can harvest easily. If you plan ahead with your pruning and you make sure your plants are as tall as the shortest picker you have, or at least she can reach it with a stick, then you're doing fine. If you gotta start buying pieces of equipment like buckets to drive around and bring you up to the top of the trees, and you're talking about major costs, especially if you need 4 or 5 of those in a field at a time. And then you got insurance, and then you got all those other things that comes along with equipment. Okay? Orchard cropping. Factors to consider: crop selection. Not only is it going to grow in your land, are you going to financially be able to maintain it? Do you have the time to maintain a certain crop? And most importantly, 8 years down the line after you put your mango tree in, is there going to be a mango market? That's the biggest thing. Remember we were talking about figs the other day? Was I talking about figs with you guys? Yeah. I can guarantee that if you put a fig tree from a sapling in the ground, I guarantee in 10 years there's going to be a fig market. I do. So, it has a lot of factors when you're talking about crop selection, and we'll talk about that on the crop selection day. Pruning, fertility, and understanding of how the need for water. You got to remember that actually a lot of trees will fruit and flower based upon water and not so much fertility. So long gone usually will flower based upon the rain cycle. So understanding your crop selection and its relation to fertility and water. Like I said, harvesting is always an issue you want to consider. Is it going to be easy? You're going to need equipment or not? And then how does your IPM plan come into play when you're talking about cropping? Let's check out the orchard alley cropping thing.